Good morning and welcome to Peace Out, where we are all learning together to peace out. Day-to-day thing. Right now for me, it's a second-by-second thing. I think it's narrowed down to one breath to the next, learning to just trust Him and learning to try to figure out how to peace out while so many things are going on around us, right? So many crazy things in the world and in our lives. And it's actually an honor to just trust God, though, isn't it? Isn't it an honor to be in a position where we can and should, and He lets us trust Him? That's the whole issue with the story we're looking at this week, actually, here in Numbers 13. Now we're in 14 today, really. Is they didn't trust God. They didn't believe what He said. As a matter of fact, let's see, in verse 22, it says, they have tested me by refusing to listen. They were testing God by saying, and they were basically saying, "Oh, I don't think we want to do it your way. We just don't want to do it your way. We don't want to go to the promised land now because you brought us out here to die." And they began to just say all these crazy things, which is easy to do if you let your mind wander in the wrong ways. It's easy to get off, and I know I know so many times we're dealing with big things, and it's easy to get our mind off into the wrong route, and it's really hard to bring it back to what God said. But I want to throw this in real quick. In Proverbs 18, let's see, I think it's 23 or 21. It says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. And I think the King James says, those who love it will eat the fruit thereof, or something like that. But that death and life are in the power of the tongue. And in the New Living, I read this in the New Living, I didn't know how it said it, but it says it this way. It says, those who love to talk will experience the consequences, for the tongue can kill or nourish life. What we say is so important. And, David prayed, Lord, put a guard over my mouth. Don't let me say anything that's wrong in your sight. Help me say the things that you say, which is so important for us. We go back to that fact of how we need to learn the word and speak the word and guard what we say with our mouths, because we find out in this chapter, God says, I'm going to give you exactly what you said. Yeah, He did. Let me find it. Hold on. He said, they will enjoy what they have despised. Let's see, hold on just a second. Here it is in verse 28. As surely as I live, I will do to you the very things I heard you say. I have spoken. Ooh, Mandalorian moment. I have spoken. Right? But He says, I'll do to you the things I heard you say. He said, so you know what? Basically, they chose to die in the wilderness because they were like, God brought us out here to die. And God's going, I did not bring you out here to die. And they're like, He brought us out here to die, and we're not going to go to the promised land. And it's too big and it's too hard, because they were looking at themselves and not God. We talked about that yesterday, about don't look at the giant from our perspective, look at God and the giant from God's perspective. God's going to give you the land. God's going to give you the giant. David didn't worry about Goliath's size. He didn't worry about the imbalance of that situation. He just knew he looked past the giant and saw God. And the people couldn't look past what they were seeing to see God. 10 spies here, we find out God actually wiped them out with a plague. The 10 spies. And then He tells the children of Israel, He says, guess what's going to happen to you? Now, first off, He says this, and I love the heart of Moses here. I don't have this. I'll just be upfront and honest, right? Because God goes, you know what? They don't recognize what I'm doing among them. And God, the whole point of going to get His children was God brought them to Himself. The point of the wilderness up to this point was for them to learn to trust God. He was saying, I'll provide you food, I'll provide you the water, I'll provide you your clothes, I'll provide everything along the way. We're going to go, I'm going to take you to the promised land. This is going to be awesome. And he's like, the fire was with them, the cloud was with them. Moses mentions that in this chapter 2, how everybody else knew God was with them because they could see the cloud. They could see the fire at night. Everybody else could see God was with them. And all God wanted was for the children of Israel to see that He was with them. That's powerful. Think about that a little bit. That's all God was wanting, was like, let me walk with you on this journey called life, in this thing called time. Let me walk with you. His whole point was to bring them to Himself, not just to take them to the promised land. And now they're throwing it back in His face. And He goes, you know what, Moses? I got an idea. Let's just wipe them out and I'll make you a great nation. And I love Moses' heart. He's got these whiny, gripey, immature people out here. And he says, no. Don't wipe them out, God. Don't do that. Because the Egyptians will say, you couldn't even get them where you wanted them to go. He said, don't wipe them out. He's like, please forgive them. Please, he's going to say, they're going to say you weren't able to take them and to do what you said. That's what the rest of the world will say, right? And I'm like, I think I would have said, God, that's a great idea. Wipe them out. Let's start over with new people tomorrow. Right? This is why I can't pastor a church. Right? Okay, yep, wipe them out. We'll start over with new people next week. Let's start over. But he didn't. He had such a heart for God's people. Which is, if you go back to the burning bush story, right before the burning bush, it was his passion for God's people that got him in that predicament to begin with, because he saw an Egyptian killing or beating an Israelite, and he rose up in this righteous anger and killed the Egyptian. I'm not saying he's right. I'm just saying, look at that passion. It was a crime of passion, right? Because he was passionate about, and that's why he separated himself, because he had that passion. And we see that same passion for God's people here. What a love, what a picture of a shepherd, what a picture of a pastor. And Moses is going, don't wipe them out, please don't wipe them out. So then God says, okay, you know what, I won't. But they're going to time out. They've been really bad, and they're going to time out. Back to the wilderness you go. And he sent them back. In verse 25, it says, he sent them back out to the direction of the Red Sea. That's where they just came from. But they didn't get the Red Sea coming through it the first time. They didn't get the manna falling from heaven. They didn't get the quail flying in every night so they could have meat. They didn't get the tree, the cross in the water, making the bitter water sweet, right? They didn't get all these lessons. He's going, you know what? You're going to time out. You're just going to go in time out. I'm not going to do no more talking. Go to time out. So he sent them back to time out, and they went back towards the Red Sea where they had come from. And they ended up, he said, nobody here is going to get to see, anybody over 20 is not going to see the promised land. Your children will get it, but he tells them, he says, I'm going to do what I heard you say. And they all died. They walked around in the wilderness for 40 years, 1 year for every day the spies were in the land, enjoying the Canaan land. They enjoyed it for 40 days, right? All the spies, though, the other 10 spies, were wiped out with a plague on the spot. And then Joshua and Caleb were left alive. Joshua and Caleb are, because they believed the promise of God, they are going to get to experience the promise of God. It's going to be 45 years, by the way. We'll learn more about that later, right? But it's going to be 45 years, but they will get to go to the promised land. But God said, I'm going to give them just what they say. That's so important that we align our words with what God said, right? He did give us peace. That's why we want to talk about the peace he gives us. And the word, death and life are in the power of the tongue. The death that we can speak death, we can speak life. And so we so want to guard our words, and we so want to make sure we align our words and our hearts with what God said. Because if we can get what God says, what we see won't matter. And we can have some big things. I got some big things looming over right now. And I'm like, come on, God, I need something in this spot right here, right now. It's not looking good. And it's every second thing to trust God for it. But I got to go back and remind myself of what God says about my situation. See, all the children of Israel had to say is, wow, the 10, what if they had risen up against the 10 spies and go, don't talk like that. God said he was going to give us the land. It doesn't matter. Let's just go. All you were supposed to do is look at it and tell us what was there, and then we're going to go take it. It wasn't a matter of can we take it or not. It was go see what we're going to get, right? And if they had looked at those 10 spies and said, you know what, y'all don't need it. We're going to pair with Joshua and Caleb. This story would have read so different if they had believed what God said. Our stories would read very differently if we will believe what God says, what he says about us, what he says about our circumstances, what he says about eternity, what he says about life, what he says about fill in the blank, our finances, our health, our mental health, our situations. If we'll align ourselves and speak the life of God's word into our situations, they will turn around, which takes me back to the power of praying the word, putting our names in there, right? Put your own name in there. If you're praying for somebody else, put their name in there. Restore unto Chris the joy of your salvation. Restore unto whoever, you are Jehovah Jireh, providing for whoever. Fill that name in there and put their name in those scriptures and pray those scriptures, because we want to align our words. He says, you're going to get everything you said. Wow, what a story. What a story. He says, that's what you believe? Because what you believe, we can't, let's just say, we can't tame the tongue, but Jesus says we can control the heart. When we control the heart, we will control the mouth. What we believe in our heart is what's going to come out of our mouth. So they really believed they were going to come out here and die. They chose to believe the lie of the enemy. They chose to believe that they had been brought out to the wilderness to die, and then they began to speak that. They began to speak what they really believed, and God's going, I brought you to myself. You have my presence. Remember, his presence steps in here and says, you guys all need to just be quiet for a minute, right? And then he put them back in timeout. I don't want to go in spiritual timeout. I don't think I would like that, right? I don't want to go backwards in anything. I want to continue to hold on to the word and continue to trust God no matter what circumstances look like, no matter what seems like it's pressing in on every side, right? We want to just continue to confess and believe. We get to choose what to believe. And so you can believe the reports of the 10 spies, or you can believe the report of Joshua and Caleb. And I want to believe what Joshua and Caleb said, because they got it. They ended up getting what they spoke. Right? And so did the 10 spies. Yep, you're right. You're going to die in the wilderness. So long. Goodbye. That's what you believe. That's what's going to happen to you. We're going to have to align our belief system with what God said, not try to figure out how to make God match our belief system. What did God say about it? Grab hold of it, and no matter what you see, trust Him for the outcome. That's what faith is about. This story could have read so differently. They wouldn't have had to go back into timeout. Go back towards the Red Sea, back into the wilderness. For 40 years they're going to spend walking around the wilderness until their kids are old enough, which by that time these kids would have been 60, the ones that were 20, right, and under. They're going to come up, they're adults now, and they're going to go into the land, and we're going to find out that this is some crazy people. They look just like us sometimes. We always have that choice. So it's your choice. Are you going to trust what God said about peace, faith, love, mercy, forgiveness, all these things? Are we going to trust what God said, or are we going to get caught up in a loop of believing a lie and pursuing that lie until we make it happen in our own lives? I'm going to choose peace today. I'm going to choose to peace out, because God said, I am giving you peace. I'm going to choose to believe He's got mercy and grace enough for today. It didn't run out yesterday, and He's going to get me through today with the provision that I need for today, physically, mentally, financially, what else, emotionally, whatever it is, He will be there. And like I said, His whole point with them was to bring them to Himself. He was proving to them and the world that He was with them, with the cloud and the fire. He was going, I got you. They didn't want it. They wanted to do it themselves. I don't want to do it myself. I can't do this myself. I have to rely on God. So I'm going to align my belief system with what God said, rather than and I'm going to make my words match what God said. And choose in my heart to believe what He said in this word. We have peace. We are righteous in Him. We have salvation. We've been redeemed. We have unfailing love. We have unending mercies and grace enough for today. That's why I'm going to peace out. Peace out, you guys. Have a great day. I'll see you again tomorrow.